Hey guys, Dr. Argie here. Welcome to the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. Of course, yours truly, Dr. Argie, founder and CEO of Faith Inc., that stands for Family and Individual Therapeutic Healing, and co-founder and CEO of Connections Matter LLC with my husband, Morgan E. Wilson Jr. Happy Mindful Mondays. Happy Mindful Mondays. So, you guys know here we bring you content, we bring you rich topics, we bring you some trending topics, and we bring you some tough and sometimes courageous conversations every single Monday night, based on sometimes what's in the news, sometimes what's on my mind, sometimes what's on your mind. But we hope that it's good content that you can sink your teeth in and that we can have a dialogue, not a monologue. So as always, I ask you all to do me one favor. That is the STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. We've got some great ratings coming for you. So if you really like this channel, this format, we're going to be bringing you some podcasts. We're going to, we have a YouTube channel that we really haven't used a whole lot. So we want you to, we're going to be putting more content on the YouTube channel, the Ask Dr. Argie YouTube channel, as well as we have a Connections Matter TV YouTube channel. So we're going to be doing that. Check out our website. Check out drrgconnects.com. You'll see a lot of information there as well. Whatever I'm doing out there in the world, we usually post it on the website, as well as maybe an article or two. So you'll just see a little bit of an uptick of the things that we're going to be talking about. But tonight is no different in terms of Mindful Mondays, the conversation. So there was an uptick in reference to, and I see Marcia on. Hey, Marcia, thanks for joining the show. And who else is on? Lisa. Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining the show. So there was an uptick. If you all saw me what day was that? I think it was Friday. I was on the Today Show with Carson and Savannah and Craig. They're really wonderful, treat me well there, Morgan and I. And the conversation was about snowplow moms and dads, snowplow parents, if you will. And, I noticed that there was a bit of an uptick in terms of people just kind of trying to process whether or not that was them, whether, it was a friend of theirs. And even with the co-host, they were questioning me, sort of not like as if they were talking about somebody else, but maybe they were talking about themselves. So I thought, all right, well, this is the thing. So we need to talk about it here on the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect show. So Lisa's on. Hey, Lisa, thank you. She says, great work. Thank you so much. I appreciate your love, your support. I appreciate your cheerleading me along. You all know that I don't do this work in vain. I don't do it alone. I'm always a believer that God is always with me, helping me, whether I'm in my office working with my clients or whether I'm on national TV or radio, whether I'm working on special projects like what's coming in the future with Reentry Point. For me, it's all God's work, and it's me walking in my purpose. And so I don't take it lightly when you all choose to walk this portion of the journey with me. And so I thank you. Hey, Kimberly's on. Thanks for joining the show, Kimberly. So let's dig right into it. So it's Mindful Mondays, and our month theme, our theme for the month was March Madness. And then we gave it a little bit of uptick and decided that we would call it from March Madness to March Gladness, because it's spring, right? Even though it's raining here in Philadelphia, it's spring. It's a little liquid sunshine. Is good for the flowers. We're moving into April. So April showers bring what? What does April showers bring? Mayflowers. And I like to garden. That's my therapy. So that's our monthly theme. And then our topic is parenting styles. From empowering, are we empowering our children, or are we enabling our children? I want to ask you questions, and Marcia's on, Lisa's on, Lisa Jones is also on, and she has 3 beautiful daughters that are triplets, I believe. They're absolutely beautiful. I know that they're smart. If Lisa's their mom, I'm sure she's on top of everything with regards to their education. But we're going to dig into, the different parenting styles, and if those particular parenting styles are helping, are they enabling our children to not do as well as they could be doing, or they empowering them to do better? Because really the goal here with regards to parenting is to, launch your children. You raise them once. They are your children. They will always be your children, right? They will always be our children, but they will no longer be children once they become young adults. The young adults in my office, they call it #adulting. And sometimes they look at me and say, Miss Argie, you didn't tell me that the #adulting would be so hard. So our children being unprepared to move into adulthood because parents are not giving them everything that they need to prepare them and to equip them, giving them both tasks and tools to launch them into adulthood. Tell me what you think about that. And there's going to be quite some parents. So I'm looking forward to, as I always say, this is a dialogue, not a monologue. So I'm looking forward to hearing all of your commentary, especially the parents, but even the persons who are not parents. Because for you all know I'm a bonus mom, so I have stepchildren, right? I call them my bonus children. And most of them are adults except for one child. And he is moving into adulthood. He's a teenager right now. And so that my experience is not birthing children, if you will, and raising them from babies. So, and some people might say, well, what makes you an authority? I don't really consider myself to be an authority, or I say relationship expert, but the truth is that my clients teach me every day, because they come in here and they entrust me sometimes even with their children and with their teenagers to help them to grow through whatever their rough spots are. And when you have that kind of responsibility, then you ought to learn something about what it means to both parents and what it means to sort of be parented. And by the way, I was parented from some great parents who were together for 60 years and sort of taught me what's required to parent multiple children simultaneously. I could tell you, and you all kind of, chime in, I do think that parenting is one of the hardest jobs that anyone can have on the planet. It is not an easy job. You do not get paid in real cash money, in real time for all of the hard work that you invest in your children. And sometimes you don't necessarily even always see the fruits of your labor until maybe later on. And by the way, there's no absolute roadmap or guide specifically, because every parent is different and every child is different. And so we're going to sort of dig into the different styles of parenting. And I want to hear your commentary with regards to what style you think you are within the parenting process, and if you've had any challenges with those particular styles, and if your children have had any of those challenges. We have Kevin on. Thanks for joining the show. Hey, Nicole is on. Thanks for joining the show. Amanda Maria's on. Thanks for joining. Brian, shout out to Brian. My nephew Tyshawn is on. Thanks for joining the show, Ty. Of course, he's a new parent, so I want to hear, and he is actually an educator along with my niece, so I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Lisa says, I find myself being a snowplow parent, but that is because there are forces out there that are greater than my kids that they don't understand, but I do. And I think most parents feel this way when they are confronted with snowplowing their kids. That's a good point, Lisa, because even when I was on the Today Show last week, I found one of the comments from Savannah, I believe, said, well, parents really, it's not their intent to hurt their children. It's not their intent to enable their children. Most parents are really trying to do the best that they can. And it is absolutely true that there are forces out there that their children are not prepared to sometimes deal with, or perhaps they've just not lived life long enough. They certainly have not lived as long as you have. And so you're trying to prevent that hurt, prevent that pain, prevent them from the stumbling blocks that they may find themselves falling into. And at the same time, the reality of it is, as much as we want to prevent some of that from happening for our children, we can't prevent all of it from happening. And I don't know that we really should prevent all of it from happening. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get some water in a second. I don't know if we should prevent all of it, because one of the questions that Craig asked me was about failing, and should the children that we are raising fail. And one of the things that I said before I even get into the different types of parenting is that I do think that failing is good. I think children making mistakes are good. I think the only true failure is never to try at all. But I think that I believe that when we fail, it can guide us, it can build fuel for us, momentum for us to try it again. I'm not so sure if I believe in this concept that if you're playing a sport or you're participating in a recreational activity that everyone should get a trophy, even if you lost. I think that part of the failing process is to know that failing is not final, right? That it's not the last, chapter of the book. It's not the end of the road. It's not the absolute, worst thing that could ever happen. It's not final. Failing will be and can be used as fuel, and ultimately that failure can be a stepping stone in order to help that child to grow. It really helps us also with teachable moments. Like, what did you learn from that? What are those lessons that you can utilize for the next time that something can happen? As I said last week, that it's not if, it's when. It's when the next curveball will come. It's when the next disappointment will happen. It's when you will encounter an outcome that you didn't anticipate, or a friend might be upsetting to you because they did something that you didn't like. It's when those things will happen. And when they do happen, the goal, I believe, of us as humans, and absolutely parents with regards to their children, is to help them to really understand how those lessons turn into power, turning a pain into power, and the messages, quite frankly, into that whatever. Sometimes people say mess, turn the mess into a message, turn the test into a testimony. They're all sort of these colloquialisms, but they have meaning. So, if we are teaching our children that they can harness those experiences from those failures and then turn that into something that is really powerful, then you've done a wonderful service to your children, because you're teaching them about grit, right? You're teaching them about resilience and fortitude and tenacity. And I guarantee you, every single human out there, based on the world that we live in, they're going to need all of it, in order to not just survive, but in order to thrive. So that's a great comment. Lisa. Melissa's on. I know she has some wonderful. Actually, they're my nieces and nephews, and so she is doing a wonderful job raising them. She and her husband. And yet I also know that, even through talking with her, as many of my other friends that have children, that, it's just not easy. So there are times when you're believing that you're doing all that you possibly can do. And, we're all a work in progress, both as children and as parents. Tanya's on. Hey, Tanya. Melissa, again, thanks for joining the show. Simi's on. Thanks for joining the show, Simi. And I think I see Mike as well. Lisa says, thanks to this topic, I'm now aware of the dangers of snow plowing, and I will back off a little bit next year because I want my children to grow and mature. I don't want to hinder them. I do think that there's, Melissa said, "Oh, thank you." Well, it's true. It's true. There's my BFF. I do think that, we, as I always say, are a work in progress. There really are no perfect human beings. I think that the worst thing that we could do is teach our children that they have to be perfect. I do think that we teach them to strive for a standard, absolutely, in every area of their lives, because we know when they put that hard work in on the front end, then it pays off on the back end. But I also think that, and I'll be honest, I see this a lot in my practice. I work with a lot of children, and when they have this expectation that they're going to be perfect, that they're going to get A++ forever, and they're never going to get an A- or a B+, then when it does happen, the bottom falls out. They have a very unrealistic expectation of what life is all about. It is really very much about the highs and the lows, the ups and downs, and the in-betweens, right? And it's about, and I said this last week, it's about ditching fear, and embracing faith, right? So, because I think to a certain degree, and you guys tell me what you think about this with regards to parenting, again, one of the hardest things that anybody can do on this planet, one of the most valuable things that anyone can do, and the most important thing, because your good parenting ultimately catapults your children into the next generation, and then those are the ones that are responsible for making, this planet great, and for becoming wonderful citizens themselves and continuing to allow civilization to go on. So your job as a great parent is to help them. And part of that is really teaching them about the pitfalls, teaching them the skills, the coping skills. So some of the questions, and before I go in there, before I do that, I'm gonna put out some of the other kinds of parents. So last week we were talking about, and there was the time, I think it was the New York Times, that article that came out about snowplow parents. It was interesting because some people had said in their commentary that they thought that snowplow parents, they were parents that were trying to make an excuse for that college entrance exam scandal that took place a couple of weeks ago. So they just came up with another rationale for why that happened. At the end of the day, I don't really know. One, snowplow parenting has been around for a while. It just kind of got resurrected, along with, if you guys ever heard of lawnmower parents, have you heard of helicopter parents? Then there's tiger parents. There's also attachment parents, and they're free range parents, right? So the attachment parents are the parents that are very attached. They let their kids sleep in the bed with them for ever, not just every once in a while, but every night until, they're 16, if you will. And I get it. I used to kind of hang out in the bed with my parents, in particular with my mom, but you also need to create this independence for the child to learn how to sleep on their own. And that's the only thing that attachment parents do. But then there are helicopter parents, because they hover, they handle everything. They don't allow for the independence that child needs to have, to make their own decisions in some ways. I'm not talking about every decision, but I am talking about if they have a little rift with a friend, I think it's okay to tell them you got to work that out, because, tomorrow that friend, you guys are going to want to play in the playground. So can you figure it out? Or if they come to you and they're upset about something, then ask them, what are the options that you have available to try to problem solve your issue, as opposed to hovering and figuring it out. Then there's the free range parent, which pretty much every kid wants to hang over the free range parent's household, because they pretty much can do whatever they want to do. That's not really good for boundaries and setting some structure. Most kids need predictability. They need structure. They need, consistency. And in a free range household, everything's up for grabs. I would say probably in most cases that anything that's done in excess, that's excessive and not in moderation, can be problematic, whether you're free range or whether you're the tiger parent, that is not just hovering. You must have an A++ every single day of your life. And there is, if you get a, A-, then it's failing. That's kind of the tiger parent. These are the various labels that they've given to various parents. Now, again, I want to underscore that labels can be helpful to sort of understand a context, but I'm not coming from this labeling perspective with regards to just pouncing on parents and, judging them. Quite frankly, I think there's too much of that. I think there's too much judging. There's too much sort of comparing, because every parent is different, just like every child is different. And so if we get into this comparing and judging, I think we sometimes do ourselves a disservice. I was talking to one of the makeup artists last week, and she was saying that she just had a baby. I remember when she was pregnant, and she was like, I didn't know it was such a thing, that where we're doing all this comparing about what we do with our kids, as opposed to, building each other up and supporting each other and affirming each other. As long as the parent is not abusing the child, then, they really get to sort of try to figure some of this out. And as Lisa just said, sort of some of the figuring out is once you figure out that maybe some things are not working, or that they have the potential to harm versus help, then you sort of recalibrate and try to do something different. So y'all tell me what your thoughts are about that. I'm going to kind of give another shout out to make sure that everyone, that I reached everyone. Alexandria's on. I said Simeon's on. Tina is joining. Melissa says spring break day 4. You'll be just fine. The spring break will be over shortly. But I know they love you and you're such an amazing mom. And, you know, my nieces and nephews are doing such an amazing job just being developed, but that does not happen by itself. Parents have a huge role in how their children are developed. So keep up the great work. Let's see. Lucy said, I agree. Leah's on. Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining the show. Marcia's on. Thanks for joining the show, Marcia. Lucy said, what about Dr. Dre and his daughter's acceptance to USC after $70 million donation resurfaces? Is he falling into snowplow parenting style? Here's the thing, I think, with, you know, I didn't even know about that. So thanks for sharing that, Lucy. Here's the thing with, like, when you have a whole lot of money, I was just having a conversation with a client recently, and we agreed that sometimes less can be more, because the more money you have and the more access you have, the more entitled it seems like sometimes we all become. And then there's no one to really kind of check us with regards to, are we allowing our children to really problem solve, figure things out, determine what's for them and what's not for them, and paying, you know, a university a whole bunch of money just so that they can accept your child, and that the child didn't get on their merit, I don't believe is a good thing. I don't think it's a good message to the child. And when I was asked this last week, my commentary on the Today Show was that sometimes it gives the child this sense that they are not good enough. If the parent is always fixing it, if they really truly are a snowplow parent, and they're always fixing things, the problem is fixed before the child ever realizes that there's a problem, then, you know, the child then can feel as if they're somewhat inadequate, that they're not capable, and then, quite frankly, as I had said, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. So what happens if you really do not properly prepare your child for not just the ups, because we want to celebrate the ups. We don't want to, you know, be the biggest cheerleaders when our children are exceeding and excelling and living their life with a spirit of excellence. That is something to celebrate. At the same time, when things don't go well, right? What we don't want to do is we don't want to just jump in there, fix it because we have money or resources or access, and make it all go away. Make the pain, make it the disappointment, maybe the rejection, make it all go away so that child doesn't experience the pain of what it feels like to either fail forward, as I like to say, right? Or to feel that pain of not getting something they want. Because how many of you out there know that it is an unrealistic world to live in when you think that you can get everything that you want? Everything and anything is yours without even hard work, quite frankly, because we are taught that, you know, hard work will produce a lot of things, right? But even if we work hard, that doesn't necessarily mean that we get everything. And should we all at the same time? Should we all get everything that we want without either working hard for it or without having some disappointment? Because if we live long enough, there's something that's going to happen that we have no control over. And we're going to need the skills, the tools, and the coping mechanisms to deal with some of those things. And we're not going to be able to go sometimes to our parents to help us to do that. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'm definitely interested in the parents out there that are raising their children. If you're honest, you know, we believe here that truth, trust, and transparency leads to transformational breakthroughs, right? And what does that mean? That means that we've got to be honest with ourselves first. Just like Lisa was saying, well, maybe sometimes I could potentially be a snowplow mom just because I'm trying to prevent my child from experiencing pain. There's no shame in that. All of us want to prevent our children from harm or pain, right? But we also have to look at our own experiences and realize that in growing up, we weren't always prevented from everything. You know, you want your child not to be harmed in a way that they can never recover from. Absolutely, positively. However, if there are things that may cause them to feel rejected or hurt or misunderstood or disappointed, right? All of those are the sort of the other side of the scale that will help to build the character and the integrity and the fortitude and certainly the grit that many of us need in order to plow through. So if we're going to plow through something, maybe we plow through it ourselves to get to the other side and say, whoo, okay, that was rough, but I did it, right? And then it gives many of us a false, a sense of excitement, right? An accomplishment that we actually did it. You know, and Lucy says it also takes a village. So true. Fixing doesn't help it long term. Actually, it sometimes makes it worse if you fix it, right? I'm not even so sure if I really like the word fix, because fix suggests that the problem was never there, right? And in our reality, sometimes we need to remember that we had a problem, and we need to remember what we did with the previous problem. I have a friend, Roger Laceth, that used to say to me, Argie, same God, different problem. So we remember that we grew through one thing and that we developed some skills to grow through that issue. Then that gives us the confidence to know, okay, when something else pops up, and it will, that your children have those skills to be able to deal with that. And by the way, the first teachers for any of our children before they step foot inside of classroom, their first teachers are who? Their parents, right? We're not just teaching them English and math and history. We're also teaching them how to be in relationships. We're teaching them, we're modeling for them. So if they see us fall apart, you know, every time something bad happens, then that might be a message that they begin to internalize themselves. But if they see us, I'm not saying to see us not feel, because in order to heal, we have to feel. So if somebody dies or something, we lose our jobs or something happens, we can be, I think, transparent to a certain degree with our children. We don't need for our children to take care of us, but we can be transparent and say, like, I'm pretty upset about XYZ, but we're gonna go through it. We're gonna grow through it together. We're gonna figure out how to get to the other side. And I think that also, you know, they say teamwork makes the dream work. Sometimes that gives your children a sense of confidence that, oh, okay, my mom and dad are not perfect beings. They also have challenges, but they have fortitude and grit and resilience, and they figured it out too. So that means that we can as well. So, you know, I'm hoping that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. Tell me if you all, those of you who have children or know someone that has children, what are y'all's thoughts about the snowplow parent or the tiger parent or maybe even the helicopter parent or the free range parent? Because free range parents, they took a lot of flack a couple of years ago for like not providing the structure to their kids that people feel like they need to have. Tanisha's on. Hey, Tanisha. Tracy's on. Thanks for joining the show, Tracy. Anika, hey, Sor. Thanks for joining the show. And Yvette is on. And Nicole, new mommy, just joined. Thanks for joining the show. So for the new parents out there, tell me what you think about this snow plowing parenting or other forms of parenting. Of course, we need to provide our children with love and nurturing, right, and guidance. But, you know, I'll be honest, a lot of the children in my office, the teenagers, will sort of talk about their parents either doing too much and they really want to start learning how to do things on their own, or sometimes they feel like their parents are a little bit judgmental. You know, they're only on them about when they're doing things wrong, but not affirming them enough, you know, and children do need positive affirmation, as we all do. You know, they asked me last week what the warning signs are of snowplow parenting. And a couple of things I said was that, you know, when your kids don't have any problem solving skills, when they're getting older and they're constantly calling you, asking you what you can do for them. Like they're not really sort of thinking outside the box about, really analytically, well, okay, if I have this problem, how can I fix it? And one of the solutions to that is when your kid sort of comes to you and says, I can't find my code or I can't find my keys, you can ask them, what are the solutions? Like, what are 3 things that you could possibly do to solve your own problem versus jumping in there to fix it for them? Also, when you're just unable to tolerate your child having any kind of distress, you don't want your children in distress all the time, right? But if the issue is you, meaning they have a problem and they're kind of willing to work through their problem, but you're trying to fix it even before they've been able to try themselves because you can't tolerate it, that's problematic. Also, if you're just plain old worn out, if you are fatigued because you're trying to fix everything and rescue all of your kids, sometimes you just need to kind of stop, right? I trust that maybe they've been watching you and you've been a good model and they can figure out some of these things on their own. I'm not talking about going up to the school and talking for themselves. Maybe they do need you to help them out with regards to that. But there are some things that they can help because you're teaching them good problem solving skills. The other thing that you need to look out for with regards to a warning sign is if, the child, has a level of entitlement. You know what I mean? The entitlement is that they are upset with you because you didn't set the alarm and wake them up when they actually needed to be at school at a certain time. Or they're upset because you didn't help them to prepare for the exam that they were supposed to be studying for. Now, sometimes I get it. You might want to help a child because they need a little bit of extra help. And I get that at a certain age. But if they're like 17, they're applying for colleges and they are unable or unwilling to fill out their own applications, which I do know are pretty labor intensive, but that is a preparation for them going to school. If those things are happening, sometimes maybe we need to take a step back and determine if we are actually going down the right path, right? Because if your child is unprepared for those challenges of everyday life, those life skills that we all need, meaning that they're really, really bright, but with regards to their life skills, they're lacking. When they go away to college, they have their own dorm room and they can't sort of figure out how to navigate these relationships, whether it's with their professors or their friends, that can be problematic. And you're not going to always be there with them. So tell me what your thoughts are about that. I am, Nalita, I think it's Nalita. Thanks for joining the show. Nalita says, I probably overprotected them. Okay. And delayed doesn't mean denied. So even if you're thinking that you've overprotected them, it's okay to self-correct. I say have a courageous conversation. We believe here on the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series to have what? Courageous conversations. Sit them down and say, maybe I've, overprotected a little bit much. Maybe, I tried to, protect from, my child from the fact that a lot of this happens a lot within divorced families where then the mom or the dad is sort of overprotective because they're maybe feeling a little guilty or feeling like they need to overcompensate because they're playing the role of both mother and father. That can happen a lot. But if you have the conversation and say, listen, let's work on these skills together because you're going to need those skills. So be prepared the next time you come to me and you can't find your sneakers for your sporting event, and I say to you, I'm not looking for them for you. You've got to figure that out yourself. Or when you've lost your phone for the 3rd or 4th time, I need to help you to develop these skills so that you'll be prepared for the future. Tell me what your thoughts are about that. She said, I do agree. Okay. I think she said, I do agree. And then Lisa's just joined back on, and I probably overprotected. And Lucy says, snow plowing and helicopter parents are teachers, schools, and school. She said there are teachers' nightmares in school when you're a snowplow parent and you're a helicopter parent. So do I have any other teachers on the show besides Lucy that have dealt with helicopter parents and snowplow parents? Tell me what your thoughts are And how do you help? Because the goal here is to help. If you're in the role of a teacher, or for me, if I'm in the role of a therapist, my role is not to like blame or shame or guilt the parent, because I do know the parenting is really hard, but it is to challenge, right? Challenge that parent to be a little bit more accountable for their own actions, and to really help them to think through whether or not they're helping their child or they're hurting them. Because most times I don't think the parent's intentionality is to harm their children. I really don't believe that. I do think that sometimes we need to, teach in love, and to create a safe space to have the parents really rethink how they're interacting with their kid, what things they're teaching them, and how they're, progressing them forward. Ernest is on. Hey, Ernest, thanks for joining the show. Wanda is on. Let's see who else. Carmen is on. Tyrone is on. I think I see something where Mother Waller's on. Thanks for joining the show. Al's on. Tyrone says, just tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, Ty. Nalita says, I have an adult child who had a rude awakening when she was financially independent after college and getting her first job. And then Carmen says, happy Monday. Listen, how many of us were there? How many, and by the way, if you like this, this dialogue that we're having, please do me a favor and STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. That way other people get this information, even if they're not watching in real time. You can all share it on your other platforms. We would love that. Tune in. Of course, we're here every week offering different forms of content as well. But let me go back to the comment that I think was Lolita made with regards to her adult child. How many of us as adults, when we're hashtag adulting before there was even a hashtag, how many of us had a rude awakening? Like, I know that I did. I think my sisters and I had amazing parents, right? They did the darn thing, right? We had everything that we needed. We had most of what we wanted. They did believe that our job was to work hard in school and to be respectful. And we had our little chores and things like that. But we really didn't have like a whole lot on us. So we did our due diligence with grades and things like that. But then when we became adults after college, I do think that there was a little bit of a deficiency, because I think that our parents made it look so easy. And I know it wasn't easy. It couldn't have been easy raising 3 daughters and, making sure that we had everything we needed and most of what we wanted. However, we went on vacations and we went on plays, and my mother was very much into exposing us to the arts. So we had a whole lot. Quite frankly, even on Christmas, it would look like we were maybe more well off than we were because we had so much. But when I got into adulthood, I think there might have been a little bit of a deficiency. Maybe I was a little behind the 8 ball in terms of what it required to pay all my bills and, how to be fully responsible. And I was always a little bit of an old soul, but I think that, with regards to the problem solving skills, I needed a little bit more. I needed to kind of get up to speed with that. And so it took me a little bit more time to navigate relationships, to gain my voice, so that when I was on my job, I would be able to speak up for myself. It took a while. It took a minute. I don't think that happened like in my full 20s. That probably didn't happen when I started really developing coping skills, and when I really felt like I had the problem solving skills, probably in my 30s, when I started developing a voice. And quite frankly, if I'm honest, I'm still learning to develop my voice. So it is a lifelong journey for all of us. The question is, with regards to our parenting, is our parenting preparing our children for their adulthood, and are they then equipped to be launched, right? So I want you all to think about birds. Birds kind of have it figured out a little bit better than we do, because if you think about it, especially like the eagle, they have a really nice comfy nest for their eggs, and then those eggs hatch. And that comfy nest that have all these nice cushiony things in it, they start like pulling the things out of the nest, like, so that the baby birds get more and more uncomfortable, right? And what y'all think that they're doing? Like, why would they want their little baby birds home to be uncomfortable? Well, I'm glad you asked. They try to make it uncomfortable because they know that eventually it's going to get cold and they're going to have to fly south. And in order for them to fly, they need to know how. And so they know that they're going to like throw them out of the nest, and then they're going to kind of go up under them. And so to make sure that they don't like fall to the ground, but they're going to push them out of the nest, and they're going to insist that they are able to fly. Well, the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we preparing? Are we making that nest a little bit more uncomfortable each month, each year? Are we equipping them to do what is necessary so that they can survive, and not just survive, but thrive? I know, interesting enough, and I don't know if Melissa's still on, but I was having a conversation with my BFF on my way here, and the kids are home, and she was talking about my niece, her daughter Lauren, washing the dishes. And, I was like, oh, that's great. That's great, because even when I'm hanging out with her, she's the kids are doing their own chores. They're really, really independent. They, can prepare their own meals. And what's interesting about that is that, I will see sometimes teenagers that are moving into their 16 years or 17 years or 18 years that don't necessarily know how to do what my friend's smaller children know how to do. So the preparation is key. I will also say, rules without relationship equal rebellion, rather. And so when you're preparing your kids for the world, then you need to be having a relationship, which, in order to have a relationship, you have to spend time. The 4-letter word for love when it comes to children is time, so that they will tell you what is going on. If you want your children, especially your teenage children and your young adult children, to talk to you, if you want them to share what's going on in their personal lives, right, you have to spend time. Put down the gadgets, have some tech-free zones, whether you're in the car or wherever, and spend the quality time so that they begin to build the trust in you, and and you have trust in them to have those conversations, and even be transparent about what you didn't know or what you did, or maybe where you have to self-correct with regards to your own parenting. So I hope that's helpful. I want to make sure that I get everybody's comments in. Let's see, who else is here? And thank you guys for joining the show. Tanisha's still on. Tracy's on. I think Anika's still on. Yvette is on. Nicole, Tiffany, Nalita. Hey, Natalie's on. Thanks for joining the show, Natalie. Mother Waller says, great conversation. Thanks for joining the show, Mother Waller. Who else is on here? Ernest, Carmen, Tyrone is still on. Al. Carmen says, she said, happy Monday. Nalita said about her daughter, she wasn't aware of how many expenses she had because her parents supported her through college, and she worked for spending money, and then had cable, phone, rent, insurance, food, etc., etc. I know that's right. So we still helped her because we didn't want her to struggle, but need to be resilient, right? I understand that. I understand you don't want your children to struggle, but a little struggle is good. My pastor spoke of a sermon one Sunday, and it says struggling well. That's what the question was all about in terms of fear. A failure. Should you allow your children to fail? And I said, absolutely yes. Help them fail forward. Help them use failure as fuel. Help them to understand that failing is not final, and help them to understand that failing can be a stepping stone to something else, and every setback is a setup for a comeback. That's how you can harness those failures and even that level of struggle. And I guarantee you, I do understand this, that it's hard to watch. It's hard to see any of your children struggling or feeling sad or upset, but that really is a part of life. None of us gets through this entire life with only being happy, never being sad. The reality of it is that happiness is sometimes based on what's happening. And if somebody died, or you lost your job, or you broke up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or something, that creates some sadness, and that's an appropriate affect. But the reality of it is, even though we're sad or disappointed, we also can feel happy or joyful about something. And we should also know that that's not the end of the journey, right? Just because we're sad doesn't mean that's the final step, that's the final say in our lives, that there can be other things that happen that help us to feel better. If you like this content, I ask you to do one thing for me. STLC, share, tag, like, and comment. I do think that this is a hot topic. I think it's a good topic because I think that we're all a work in progress. And I think that parenting, again, as I said, if you're just joining the show, parenting is the hardest job that anybody could ever have. It really is. And you don't get your payment right away sometimes, and as your kids grow, you're having to grow with them. You're having to find your own skills, your own tools, your own equipped coping mechanisms to deal with the different things that you have to with regards to your parenting. And if you're parenting more than one child, guess what? Then you have more than one personality. So therefore, you can't do this cookie cutter parenting, because what works for one may not work for another. So it can be really, really difficult. And so what it requires is, I think, faith. As I said before, I said sometimes we got to ditch the fear and embrace faith. And then we got to develop some skills, and we got to be compassionate and patient with ourselves. Tolerant sometimes of the mistakes that we even make as parents, because we're not perfect beings. There is no such thing. We're just reaching for the standard and sometimes doing the best that we can. And so I got to tell you, guilting people, shaming, blaming, labeling, although we're talking a little bit about labeling, but labeling in love, to say, okay, these are some things that can bring attention to what we're maybe not doing so well, or what we could do better. And then knowledge is power. Once you have the knowledge that this is either working for your child or not working, then you can begin to empower both yourself as a parent, and then empower your child, again, versus enabling them. I hope this is making sense. And I want to hear what your thoughts are about this, because I do think that this is an issue that sometimes people, in particular parents, struggle with. My sister Kelly just joined. Hey, Kelly, thanks for joining the show. Lisa says, faith is very important. You need to have something to hold on to. I will say amen to that. For me, and this is not for everyone, I don't want to project my faith onto anyone else, but I know that there's this journey, this thing called life. For me, I couldn't do it without faith in God, and I couldn't do it without my prayer warriors, and I couldn't do it without the knowledge that there is a power greater than myself that's helping helping me to fail forward, if you will, and keep moving and looking at those stepping stones as building blocks to get to the next level, right? And then helping whoever else. For me, again, I don't have any biological children. I just have my bonus children. But I also think I've mothered a whole lot of kids out there in one capacity or another, and learned a heck of a lot about how to utilize the skills that we have, because they're meant to be utilized. And we need to even take into consideration those tests that we've had and turn those into testimonies for someone else. Gerald's on. Thanks for joining the show, Gerald. Catrice is on. Thanks for joining the show. Again, Mother Waller joined again. Gail, Dr. Gail's on. Thanks for joining. Whether you're late or not, I'm so glad that you're on. Of course, we always enjoy your commentary. Lydia's on. Lisa said, kids are not interested in knowing about the real world. They want to live in a fantasy world as long as possible. My kids seem to want to feel entitled. I am trying to get them out of that by giving them little challenges to help them know what they're going to face. There are so many things to know as an adult that kids just can't learn. This is true. This is very, very true. And Lucy says, me too, my voice changes with life experiences. This is true too. And hey, Nicole was on. Hey, Nicole, thanks for joining the show. As it relates to what Lisa said, how many of you are dealing with entitled children? That seems to be the order of the day these days. I think that's a matter of that the world that we live in, there's so much stimuli, there's social media that exposes our kids to a lot of stuff the stuff that we weren't exposed to. And, you know, I think many parents face their children sort of being entitled, because what happens is you're trying to give them the skills and the tools, you're trying to give them value systems, and, you know, you're trying to prepare them for their adulthood. There's a lot of moving parts here. And then, quite frankly, those children are being exposed to other children, right? Because they go to school, and they're friends with children who are being raised in different households. So they're seeing how other children respond to authority. They're seeing how other children are living and what their value systems are. And sometimes we can't protect them from everyone. Our children can't live in a bubble. And so really our job is to do the best we possibly can to give them the skills, the value system, the resilience, the integrity. I always say, you know, more is caught than is taught. So you have to do a both and, not an either or. The caught is that they're modeling it because they're watching you. They're paying attention to what you're doing and how you're dealing with problem solving and what your coping skills are. And then the taught part is, are you talking? The four-letter word for love when it comes to children is time. So are you having the courageous conversations with your children? Are you spending time putting the gadget down, having tech-free zones over dinner at least, or when they're in the car, asking them how their day was, and then having them engage you in a conversation where they're able to really fully weigh in? Because I guarantee you, when you ask open-ended questions to your children, usually they're sitting waiting to have the conversation, to talk with you about what's going on with them. And sometimes we have to ask the question, and then we have to listen, right? In order to hear what they're saying, also hear what they're feeling, because there's a lot of feelings in there, and then help them to express and process what's going on. Because some children, I know this is the case in my practice, they don't always have language for what's going on with them. And so if they're unable to solve a problem, if they're unable to develop the coping skills because perhaps you've been preparing them for other things, maybe to be a good scholar, but not necessarily giving them the life skills, you're just doing it yourself and fixing it and rescuing it, and therefore they don't have the language for how to work through their problems, then you sort of have to pivot, you know, have a paradigm shift, self-correct for yourself as a parent, and then move forward helping them to grow. Because as I like to say, delayed doesn't mean denied. So just because you haven't done it doesn't mean that there's not huge opportunity to move forward in a different way. What are your thoughts about that? You know, this is that for those of you who just hopped on, and in case you don't know, this is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. We're talking all week about parenting styles. In particular, we're talking about, didn't watch the segment last week and you don't know what snowplow parenting is. It's when you plow everything out of the way, just like a snowplow does, so that any problem, any issue, any trauma, anything that the child possibly could experience, any trouble, you get it out of the way so the child doesn't have to experience it. So if they have a fight with their friend, if they're having an issue at school, you know, if they're, you know, dealing, I'm not talking about depression or anything major, because you should be weighing in with those particular things. But if it's something small and you just don't allow them to fix anything, if you're rescuing them from every situation, then you have to ask yourself the question, are you taking away their ability to develop the life skills that they will actually need as they continue to grow? And are you not preparing them to be launched into adulthood? So that's kind of what we're talking about today. And we're going to be talking about this all week. So I want to encourage you that if you, when you, tomorrow on Testimonial Tuesdays, to give your testimony, and there'll be a link, and then ask some questions. And then we're going to unpack those questions in WIOW and Work It Out Wednesdays. And then, you know, we're going to begin the process of self-correcting. We're going to create a paradigm shift. If you're doing any of that, if you're snow plowing, if you're lawn mowing, if you're helicoptering, if you're free ranging, if you're the tiger parent, whatever it is, you know, there's no shame. There's never any shame in being aware and acknowledging the issue. The shame is if you choose not to do anything about it, and then if you're choosing not to do anything about it, then your child continues to suffer because of it, which can be problematic. Let's see. All right, we're still on, and we still got other people making some comments. So I want to hear from everyone. And sometimes what happens, guys, Amia's on, Sean is on. Thanks for joining the show. Sometimes what happens is I can't always see all of your comments. So if I didn't respond to your comment, it means I just can't see it. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to ignore you. Not preparing them, Nalita says, not preparing them to be launched, which is true. And Gerald is on as well. Think about that. If you don't prepare your children to be launched and you're not here for whatever reason, you take a job away, you get sick, you pass away, Lord forbid, then what will your children do? If you've equipped them, then they're prepared. And if you've equipped them and they're prepared and you're still here, then guess what? You get to see the fruits of your labor, right? Investing in your child and giving them everything that they need in order to be successful and significant as a young adult. And you get to sit back and watch, right? And you get to watch what they can become, because we're all here on purpose and we're all destined for greatness, right? There is no one person, let's say, from what I believe, God could have called it all off, but he didn't. So if we're here on purpose, and it's important to prepare each and every one of your children to walk in their destiny and to live their life on purpose, and maybe to challenge the status quo. As they challenge the status quo, that gives them what they need, and then they also pass it on. So tell me what your thoughts are about that. I'm hoping that this sparks some conversation. Nalita says that is what you said. I think that statement sums it up very well. Well, thank you. I'm hoping this sparks something in all of you with regards to yourselves. Even if it's not you, maybe it's a friend, or, I know that can be tough. I had said, when they asked me last week, well, how do you stop the snow plowing? And I said, get an accountability partner, someone who you trust, someone who's honest with you, someone who can really share with you if they think that you're really hurting your kid. But it has to be someone you trust, and someone who is not going to really, they're going to share their truth in love. They're not going to judge you. They're not going to shame you or guilt you or blame you. Right? That's the person that you need to hold as your accountability partner. So when it happens, they say, hey, you're doing it again. You're doing it again. Also, just encourage your children to tell you when they feel like you're, being overzealous with them because they do want to be independent. I said, do some meditation, or get therapy, have a third party to sort of help you when you're getting anxious and you want to jump in there and fix it. And they will help you to develop other skills besides trying to rescue your child. And then change your focus, right? You can change your focus. If you believe that you're enabling your children, then you can change your focus to empowering them, right? Which is so much more effective if you're empowering your children. It is the difference between whether or not you teach someone to fish and they will eat forever, or if you give them a fish and then they eat for the moment, right? And so, that's a parable from the Bible. I understand that, but I think it has a lot of metaphor. What are you teaching your children, and how are they learning from you? Are they learning to be independent and interdependent? Because there's no such thing as fully independent. We all need each other. But if we're interdependent, then we determine what things we can do for ourselves and then what things we need help with. And we all need help with something. That's why we have the village. And then ultimately ask yourself, how you want to parent if you were parent, how you want to be parented. If you weren't afraid, how you would parent. Because I think that the fear sometimes can be really prevent a whole lot of things. So, even if you just you can talk with a friend and say, like, if I am honest, I'm so afraid. And rightfully so. I do think that there are some reasons to be fearful. We're living in a very dark world, but if you weren't afraid, How would your parenting be different? What skills would you be giving to your children that you may not be giving? And quite frankly, if you are none of those things, if you are actually doing all the things that you basically can do, reading up, praying, making sure that your children are independent and interdependent, then that is wonderful. That means you got some really, really good skills, and your children are going to have some really, really good skills. And then you need to be sharing that with some other folk, because I guarantee you most of us need it. And no one knows everything. We're all a work in progress. For those of you that just signed on not too long ago, Stanley, thank you for joining the show. Louise, thank you for joining the show. Roger, you joined late. I was talking about you a little bit earlier, so thanks for joining the show. All good. I was saying, how you've had a blended family, and how two things. One, you've done a phenomenal job with your kids and launching them, but also you used to say that it's same God, different problem. And so thank you for that, because I continue to pass it on. And if you get words of wisdom from people, you should pass it on. Karen, thanks for joining the show. I see a lot of hearts. I see a lot of thumbs up. An accountability partner is paramount. So thank you, Lou, for that. And Carmen, last minute comment says, yes, children watch their parents and the adults in their village. They all are sponges and do more of what we do than we tell them to do. Yeah, more is caught than is taught. We must, as adults, realize or really be wise in our actions around our children that God has placed in our lives. I too am not a biological mother, yet I have been blessed with the gift of my godchildren, and I'm proud to be an auntie mom. I'm like an auntie mom too, and they are my gifts from God. Yeah. So what's interesting? Who said that? Carmen. We're going to be talking about auntie moms, and probably next month as well, because we were having a conversation in a meeting, and I think Kimberly, if she's still on, she was like, Dr. Argie, you got to talk about that, because there's something about these auntie moms and maybe their uncle dads out there that we don't get. Sometimes, there's just a way in which we invest a lot in that maybe sometimes doesn't get so recognized. So we're going to talk about that as well. But thank you so much for your commentary. I hope I got everybody. Amina jumped on. Thanks for joining the show, Amina. Sean's jumped on. Catrice, Gerald, Kelly, Lisa, Mother Waller, Dr. Gail, Lucy, Nicole Bolt, Nalita, Maureen, who else? Carmen, Al, Tyrone, Wanda, Ernest. Thank you guys. Oh my goodness, this is a good night. I'm so excited. Tiffany was on the show. Nicole, I can't go back too much further. Natalie was on the show. Tiffany as well. It's not going to allow me to go too far back on my computer. But again, thank you guys for joining the show so much. Just remember that on Tuesday, it's Testimonial Tuesdays. Send us your testimonies as well as questions. We're going to WIOW work it out on Wednesday, same time, same bat channel. On Wednesday night at 7:30. Then on Thursdays, we have Thoughtful Thursdays. I give you words of wisdom and powerful, inspirational affirmations just to help you to get through the rest of the week. And then we get to Freedom Fridays, where we talk. You can write in and ask us what you want us to talk about for next week. When I see you on next Mindful Mondays, I think it's going to be in April, which I don't know where winter went. I just don't know. And for those of you, if you want to come out, I'm going to be co-hosting with Donovan West. So I'm going to be putting out another post about that, but it's going to be at the Holt Lounge on Friday night at 6:30 to 11. It's called Relationship Script. And the series is Just Because. And you can come out if you're single, if you're married, if you're sexy, if you are, divorced, partnered, booed up. It doesn't really matter. We're going to just be talking about relationships. It's going to be good music, good fun, free giveaways. We're going to have a good time hosting. I've not hosted before with Donovan West, but he's done these before, and I hear they're great. So I am excited. Meet me there. Morgan will be there as well, as of course, my partner and my partner in so many ways. And we're just going to have a good time on Friday night. You guys know that's our date night. So we want to spend our date night with you guys. Okay. So I think that's all I got for you guys tonight. I thank you so much for joining the show tonight. You have made my evening. You made me smile. We had great conversation, and we're going to keep talking about this week. So have a wonderful evening. This is Dr. Argie, your global relationship transformationalist, and I love you. Have a beautiful night on purpose, from my heart to yours. Bye-bye.